Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Can't Remember Shit, a memory podcast. I'm your host, Evan Barton, and today, me and a lovely guest are attempting a thoughtful descent, a peaceful reminisce, and an honest recollection of our own memories. Every episode, my guest and I discuss one aspect of memory in particular that they don't know about until I tell them right here, right now, on this episode. Some of our favorite memories and our least favorite memories can evade us in the moment and might make us say, I can't remember shit. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Can't Remember Shit. I am so excited to welcome Portlyn to the show. Hey, Port.
Hi.
What's going on today?
Not much. I mean, actually a lot. And now I'm here, and I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. We've been wanting to do this for a while now. You're here in our midst. I can't wait to dive into all of the memories, all the things. We're gonna have a great time. We've been kikiing hardcore recently. I think we've really unlocked and our knowledge of each other's interests to where we can tap into that whenever we want, which I love.
I do too. I think it's been really nice lately, so I'm excited.
I'm so glad. I mean, we're on the heels of a huge celebration for you guys, which I'm so excited about. And just I'm bringing it to the show mostly because I'm so excited and can't contain my excitement. But it also was just I'm being a little cavalier about it. They got married.
I got married.
But it was also a fun, intimate apartment wedding that Jay was surprise, we're getting married in Megan's apartment. We're signing the documents right now. And then we all did the not obligatory, but the sentimental toast at Vintage, which was really sweet. I afterwards was I didn't get emotional until other people started talking, but I knew exactly what I wanted to say when it was my turn. When Sydney Gray was and now
you,
Evan.
Yeah.
But it was really, really fun, and I'm just so excited to have been a part of that and to be a part of your life. And so glad that you're here on the show with me, my little show.
I'm so excited. Well, and I mean, Jerk is the reason why we are so close, I feel like. So it's very, it's all wrapped up in a neat little bow.
Yes, and some long-time fans of the show will remember Jerica from, I'm pretty sure, episode 2 of the season 1 that we did 4 years ago when we lived together. And so we're going to get Jay back on, but we also have Port now, which I'm super excited about. What do you know about I Can't Remember Shit?
Well, I know that it's a memory podcast or a memory-focused podcast. I actually watched a clip today because I was I needed to refresh my brain. But I've seen the clips. I've listened to the pod. So I know what's going on. I know what's going on. I know that you can't remember shit. I know that you ask people about things and their memories and their memories about you.
Yes. Okay, well then that's what a great segue, because we're going to go right into the first segment. And it's about our memories of each other. So we're going to go into our little filing cabinets of our memories. I like to think about the SpongeBob episode where all the little SpongeBobs are running around in his brain.
Yeah.
And then things are on fire.
Yeah.
Which is very much what my memory feels like sometimes. But we're going to reminisce about each other and do our best to remember our first memories of each other, which, baby, this goes way back.
It does. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can jump in with my memory, one of my first memories of
Guesties first.
One of my... it's not... The most, solid time that I spent with you, the very first, was at Jerica's Pride Party.
Yes.
And so those are my first memories of...
Which I got wild and crazy at that party.
We all did. It was in high school, so it was the time.
It was queer joy.
It was queer joy, queer resistance. It was the time.
Queer liberation.
Queer liberation. I think we kissed. We kissed.
Because we did. This was it was the moment that every high schooler thinks is going to happen, where you're playing spin the bottle in a room full of attractive people. Yeah. And baby, we worked through the room.
Yeah. I remember
I kissed Tessa that night.
Everyone was kissed. Everyone got kissed and was kissed.
Exactly.
And very consensually. We were all very excited about it.
And summer beer was had.
Vodka was there.
Yeah.
We were teens.
It was so
Just little
fun.
teens.
I don't even know how or why the Greens like decided to vacate the house, the premises that day.
I think it was a dart tournament.
Yeah, that is the best excuse I've ever heard for them.
It's such a very green excuse.
That's the only reason they'd leave that. They vacate the premises.
It's for dart tournaments and concerts.
Exactly.
So it was one or the other.
It was one or the other.
Yeah.
But I feel like we had like literally free reign of the house because like I ended up sleeping upstairs in their room, and I was like, oh my God, I for a long time I had gone to Jay's house like just to like hang out, and we would like watch shows and stuff or go into the shed, but never upstairs until like I think that party I was like, wait, there's an upstairs in this house. In
like
the little
they have
blue
a
house.
bedroom?
Well, yeah, I was like, where do they sleep? I knew it wasn't the basement, but like there was like I just had never wandered into the room because you couldn't really wander into it unless you went up those stairs.
It was like because the room was there as soon as you went up the stairs.
Yeah. And it was awesome. I do think that like I'm trying to think how many people were like messy that night. Like probably like 5 or 6 people threw up that night.
I think probably. I think it was a party, like a true old-fashioned party.
Yes. Well, I'm like we went to Pride beforehand because we all walked in the parade.
Yeah.
Which I love that memory. I've talked about I think that it was senior year was the first time we walked as Sofa.
And it was so fun. I remember, because then that became like a tradition afterwards. And then my senior year, I remember Sydney Outlaw and we skated the parade.
Yes.
And that was really fun. And so that was always like a really just like nice tradition that I think started there in that year. And that was so much. I remember just being like, feeling full of like young queer joy, which is like such a special thing to experience.
Well, and I don't know, with the way that this week has gone,
yeah,
those moments are starting to become more and more precious to me. And I mean, I think about this all the time, but like just the privilege of the community and the different space that I was able to like occupy at Booker T, and like just our unique high school experience is something I so do not take for granted.
We're so lucky.
Yeah.
Like I think about that quite often, but you know, the Sofa was I think the first gay, like at that time they called it the Gay Straight Alliance.
Yes.
It's the first GSA in Oklahoma. So like that was like the legacy that we were coming into.
Yeah.
So it
Which
felt very
Booker T
nice.
was all about legacy. There was something about like I was proud of traditions.
Yeah.
You know, it almost like instilled in me this appreciation for something that I might never really truly understand, but like you just have to know it's important. That's almost like the baseline of tradition is like knowing that it's important and knowing that it was done before you. Which like we have some things some overlapping circles in that, which I love. But yeah, Booker T like is definitely like a highlight of my experience and like the queer community that I was able to. Some of those relationships I still have. Many of those relationships I still have.
Or they developed after high school, which I think honestly is kind of best case scenario because we had like all of these histories with each other, and then we were able to, go and do our own thing and then come back and develop those relationships further.
Absolutely.
And so that's been really nice. Like moving back to Tulsa, it's been really nice to have that.
Absolutely. Okay, my first memory of you wasn't that party, it was before, because I'm one of those people that like I notice people when they walk into the room, and if they make a significant enough impression on me, I will probably never forget them.
Yeah.
I know I can't remember shit, but like people and visual characteristics like
nice.
do stick
that's
with
really
me.
Good. People, I'm really bad at remembering.
Well, that makes it's tough. I think a lot of people have.
I'm an action person. Like what? So like for me, it was like what we did together that
exactly.
I remember. Yeah,
that bonded us.
Yeah.
Well, I remember like you walking into a Sofa meeting, and I think the reason why like that, like my eyes were on, and my memory was. Like, I was locked in at Sofa was because it was like, I'm in a comfortable and safe space. Right. And, like, we took, I don't know, maybe my memory of this is a little warped, but, like, I feel like we took Sofa pretty seriously.
Yeah.
Like, there was an education element about it. Like, I remember learning about, there was one time in Sofa where I think that Jerica and Megan, which is so funny that they were freaking co-presidents. We're talking about literally besties right
yeah.
now, besties and wife, which I know you know this. Jerica and my phone is wife for life. I will probably not change that.
You never need to change that. You
there
never
will
need
always
to change
be
that.
Yeah. But yeah, we were very educational. And like I remember one time we had the opportunity, or they like, I guess like challenged everyone or gave people the opportunity to bring like a presentation or whatever about queer characters in media, because like at the time, like oh my gosh, and this was 2015, so almost 10 years ago. Like we have exploded when it comes to queer representation just in 10 years, and like I remember. One of my presentations, my presentation was about like queer characters in video games, and so I did a couple of like things.
I remember that. Oh my god, that's unlocking my memory. Okay, yeah.
But like, yeah, it was like, and then someone did like the L word and talking about that, which my sister's watching right now. So like we're locked. Oh my gosh, I've been seeing so much L word stuff just in my home. It's wild. Also, a show that I think is becoming more and more relevant now because we have not gotten anywhere in 20 years. Like, it's honestly crazy.
Yeah.
Sidebar. I remember you and Tessa and Sydney, I think, all walking in together.
Yeah.
And when, like, you all three showed up to Sofa at, like, the same time. And Sofa, to me, at that time, was, like, a space that I wasn't, like... I was always comfortable in, but I wasn't comfortable putting myself into it, if that makes sense. There was something about having always been a athlete or, you know, kind of always having my after school time occupied by something like on the athletic realm that like going to a meeting about, which we were, going to like any of these meetings.
Discussion, basically.
It was different. And like my after school time was just like almost always occupied, but during activity period at Booker T, loved the fact that we had an activity period.
I know.
We were able to like participate in clubs, and clubs would have meetings during a school time where like, even if you were an athlete, you could still like find an extracurricular. And baby, when there was a sofa meeting during activity period, Mr. McCoy's room was full of queer people.
Full
of us.
God, yeah.
Which is awesome. Yeah. And so I think that's when we like watched But I'm a Cheerleader in one of those activity period meetings, and we did that presentation day, which was really, really awesome. And I loved that, like, that was when, like, I solidified who you were as, like, a person. Yeah. And then, like, baby, the world expanded from there. The lore deepened.
Yeah, it continues to deepen.
It literally does.
To myself. But I think, like, because I'm pretty sure, like, Sydney, Tessa, and I all came from our same Latin class or something, because we were all in Latin, and then we were all in SOFA, and we had all gone to middle school together. Yeah. So it was like, we were just, like, continuing on.
That was when the girl gang was officially established.
Exactly.
Y'all are, like, fully a girl gang.
Yeah.
I love that. And, you know, high school connections, like, to the listeners out there, don't take them for granted. I think that, like, one, there's a little bit of, like, me being in my hometown still that's, like, allowing me to deepen these relationships more intentionally. But, like, I think one of the episodes I've already recorded this season is about the high school swim team. And so maybe I'm on a soapbox about, like, high school being so amazing or whatever. It was really just a, like, time where I was figuring out who this version of Evan was going to become. And, like, I have set myself up to be that person, and I think it's because I had those experiences that were extremely validating in high school, like moments that affirmed my sexuality, moments that affirmed my gender identity, which I guess I didn't necessarily go on much of a gender journey in high school, but, like, I was aware of it.
The seeds were planted.
Exactly. But yeah, I love that, and I love that that's how we connected, and truly, like, something like our identities, I think, is what is the foundation for community in a lot of ways. Is like looking for like-minded people, having like-minded experiences.
Especially in, like, that time of someone's life, I feel like you are really, you know, you're breaking away from the family mold, and you're going into learning about what it's like to be with peers and to be with people who are not your family. So it is, like, very, like, you feel so strongly about your identity, and you feel so strongly about, like, all of these things that, you know, your interest and your identity and how those overlap, that it's like it can be like very intense, and high school's still high school, but it also created like those intense emotions, I think, created avenues for people to create really strong bonds after that.
Absolutely. Well, I think we get to go into the topic.
Okay,
Do you have any guesses? I love asking people what they think it's gonna be.
My first idea was nativeness.
Okay, yes.
Because I was like, what do we got? And then my second idea was Pokemon.
Oh, great ones.
I know. So, but those are all I have.
Unfortunately, those would have been great ones, but that's not it. The third option
one.
that I actually did choose is a good one, and I'm really excited. All right, so now we're going to dive into our memory banks together. We're going to dust off our filing cabinets. I know I mentioned that earlier, but I'm doing it again. We're going to start up our hippocampuses, and we are going to dive into this topic together. I am so excited to reveal to you that we are going to be talking about horror movies.
Oh my God, this is fun.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
scary movies.
Yeah.
I know that you and I have had many conversations about this, and something tells me that you're a cinephile.
Oh no. What could that possibly be?
What could have told you that? But no, like we do have oftentimes we have conversations about like movies that we watch, and I have found whenever I say I've watched a classic movie or a horror movie specifically, you are almost always the person that's like, I've seen that too. And it's either from childhood or it's from like, I think high school, you like really kind of dove into like horror specifically as a genre. And that was also kind of when I did as well, like just exploring it on myself, like getting over that fear of and understanding, I think more of like the storytelling device that horror is rather than like being scared by the visuals. I think that was like a cornerstone for me in horror movies. And it's really like fully now one of my favorite genres. Yeah. I love horror.
Oh my God, this is so exciting. I love talking about horror movies.
I love it. Well, I know I just sprang this on you, but like let's literally talk about our favorite memories related to horror movies. You first, whatever first comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, so the first thing that comes to mind is like one of my early memories of watching a horror movie. I watched movies that were way above my age.
Yeah.
Like appropriateness, like from a very, very young age.
Yeah.
I remember being...
You were born at a very young age.
I was born at a very young age. And I was just so little.
Yeah.
And so small. And I was also watching like the wood chipper scene in Fargo. And was...
Gore. Exposure to gore as a child.
To gore. Terrible. Don't do it to your children. But like I remember like those foundations, and then also like being very into the horror elements of other movies. Frida was a big one. Whenever she wakes up in the hospital after the bus accident, and it is a claymation scene where there are claymation skeletons all looking over her while she's laying in the hospital bed. And it was my favorite scene. And I remember being sick one day and like staying home from school with my mom. We put on Frida because I loved that movie.
Mommy, can you watch Frida?
Can you watch Frida? I want to watch them kiss again. Yeah, when I rewatched that as an older person, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
This is wild. But I remember like falling asleep and being so upset when I woke up and I had missed my favorate scene because I was like, I would just rewind it back to the skeletons.
Let's go run it back. Yeah.
Please, I want to see the skeletons. So I had always loved those and always loved the like children horror movies. So like Coraline, I was obsessed with. Any of the Tim Burton movies, you know,
which are kind of like designed to be. I think they infuse horror elements with like maybe the mostly the visuals and kind of like the way that the story's told like incorporates those, but like they're not scary.
No, yeah.
Like I don't think that Tim Burton like wrote like
Corpse
Bride.
I guess it's like adapted, but whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, he didn't write it. I don't necessarily like. It has tropes that are like reminiscent of the genre, not necessarily like scary tropes, but like I think like dead people and zombies and people that are traditionally bucketed in that
Same
horror
to
genre.
like Scooby-Doo. Like I was obsessed with Scooby-Doo. Like I just liked the idea. I liked the monsters and the kind of. It's also very whimsical. Like that element of horror, I think, is very, very whimsical.
Figuring something out. Like I think that like horror. A device that's often used in horror is like the aura of mystery, to where you like as the viewer are figuring out alongside the characters, which is like kind of where thriller plays into it when it comes to genres. But absolutely, that's one of my favorite things about them.
And like that's why I still like mystery movies, and like I love a good like Agatha Christie little joint wherever
an Agatha Christie joint
wherever I can like just and I don't even have to like participate in the mystery unfolding or whatever. I just want to watch it happen.
I just gotta watch Poirot.
I love Poirot. I love Poirot. I did have BBC, like whatever that was, BritBox. I was subscribed to BritBox a while ago, and then I deleted it, but it's fine. But the first like horror movie, like actual horror movie that I remember watching was with my aunts. And they were obsessed with horror, but they really liked, like obviously like my dad would have showed me like these, you know, highbrow whatevers.
Yeah.
And I did watch a lot of those with him. Not even highbrow, but just like the classics. Goonies, like I grew up on Goonies and The Lost Boys. Okay.
Goonies scary. I think that the Goonies absolutely qualifies as like a horror movie in some ways.
And I should talk about The Lost Boys before I talk about The Orphan, because The Lost Boys is the first horror movie that I watched. But everyone who knows me knows that that's one of my favorite movies. I made everyone like come and watch it
at the drive-in.
At the drive-in, that one is just like my family's like repeated quotations kind of thing. The Orphan was the first time that I watched something that wasn't, you know, it's not a great film.
No.
It's not like a wonderful film, but it really impacted me because I was like, this is a horrific story.
Absolutely. Like, it's something that could happen, or they make you think that it could happen because like it did happen or whatever.
It was like based off of a true story or whatever. And those are the kinds of movies that my aunts love to watch. My aunts are like a year older than me, so like they would be watching these really just like intense horror movies, and more so like the ones that, you know, more slashers, more low budget, or just like kind of what we think of when we think of like traditional horror genre movies.
Absolutely.
They watched a lot of those, and then I also had my uncle Rocky, who was like really into the classics. Yeah. Like the you know, 80s
he doesn't miss
movies.
a noir night, right?
He absolutely does not. Or a dead disco night. So like I had all of these influences, but I think the first like traditional horror movie that I remember watching and having like a unnerving impact on me was The Orphan.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, what's so funny is that actress from that that plays the girl. What's her name?
What's her name? It's like, it's not.
I'm like, I can't even remember the name of the girl.
I think of freaking Furtado, but it's not that.
Furtado. She's in The Hunger Games. Esther is her name.
Yeah.
She plays like one of the like, what are those called? The fucking kids from the Hunger Games that are like the preppy ones that kill people early on.
They're the capital people?
Yeah, they're like from the
I
first
didn't even
and
know
second.
that she was in that movie.
She's in it.
I need to rewatch
she has like
that.
a crazy scene where like her and Katniss like fight, and Katniss ends up like stabbing her with a knife or something like that.
Well, and then she like reprised the role as an older.
Which is wild because she does still look the same.
Yeah, did you watch it?
I love that about yes, I have watched it. I love that about Hollywood. Like you literally can like immortalize your image in time with like an iconic image or an iconic look.
Yeah.
And like, you know, this little girl, like when she played that girl, she was already like 15, 16. Yeah. But she looks like a little girl.
Yeah. And then, oh my God, like, I just remember like, I think what like unnerved me about that was the deception and like the layers of deception, which, you know, there are like more horrific things that have happened in horror movies that I have seen. But like for some reason, like when I was at that age, it was like, you know, oh, you lie, you go into hell. So I was like, this is lie upon lie.
She's lying and killing.
Yeah, like, she's like, and killing.
And not afraid to, you know, off one of the children, like in her case. I mean, that movie like really does have a lot of, I think, elements that, like, if you're a kid watching watching a movie about a kid being scary or like being evil, you start to like look around a little differently.
Yeah,
That's probably why that unnerving.
That makes a lot of sense.
So the unnerving feeling is that something that, like, as a kid you felt like you were able to sit with and process, or was it like that, like, oh, I don't like this, like, do I need to talk to someone about it? Like, how did you sit with your first horror experience?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Whenever I felt that way, I definitely, like, it was a weird feeling. Also because, like, I was a kid with anxiety, like, very high anxiety. And I had, like, you know, just, like, I would describe it to my parents when I was little as feeling like something bad was going to happen, but I didn't know what.
Something bad.
Something bad is going to happen. What is it?
In Oz.
In Oz, yeah, thank you. But, so, yeah, I, like, wouldn't... That is as far as I got, but I also knew... Because I was raised with, like, a filmmaker father, I knew that movies weren't real. Yeah. So I had that understanding from a very young age. I never, like, I guess I never got it twisted that, like, you know, one thing was going, like, whatever I saw didn't actually happen. So I think I was able to watch a lot more movies than, like, most. I don't know, when did that movie come out? Probably when I was
2009.
Like 9. Yeah, 9. So I was like 9. I think I was able to watch a lot more darker or unnerving movies because of that. But I do remember, like, the sickly kind of feeling that I would get in my stomach when I watched
when you were
things.
scared.
When I was scared. And then I would get those often in moments of scenes where that I knew that, like, I didn't like seeing what was going on. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily, like, the scary things or, like, paranormal stuff. I loved paranormal stuff. It was definitely, like, human actions that would...
Human, like, atrocity.
Yeah, human atrocity that would make me, like, feel upset, the most upset. And I wouldn't... That is what I did. I didn't think I knew how to process.
Well, and newsflash, your parents probably didn't either. They wouldn't know how to filter that through the lens of, like, how could I explain that to a child to understand it either? Which is kind of, like, I think, something that horror movies get to do that not a lot of other things do. I mean, obviously, there's many films out there with, like, messages that are a little bit harder to read on your first watch, but, like, I think some horror movies have the ability to, like, really be underhanded in what their message is because it hides behind the monster in some ways. That perspective you just shared about, like, knowing that movie magic existed to fabricate kind of, like, these images and stuff like that, that's something that I did get twisted. I think that I thought that movies were real.
Most kids do, I feel like. Like, if you don't have...
And horror, exactly. Horror, I think, made me think that.
Or, like, fantasy or anything. Like, anything that, like, you can't see in real life, I think you are very much like, whoa. Because, like, most kids don't understand... like, the idea of a set or anything like that. And or
effects.
Or editing or like any of that, or acting in general. And, like, that was definitely what I grew up in. And it was, you know, at that point in time, it was all college age kids doing it around me. It wasn't like an actual set or anything. It was just, like, very on location. It was like my dad filming his family members and, like, that. But I knew that there was an element of unreality happening.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we move on to mine, or before I tell you mine, what is your favorite horror movie?
This is so hard. Well, nostalgia-wise, it's definitely The Lost Boys. I think, personally... Oh my god, this is so hard.
It is
actually.
hard.
This is very hard for me.
Because I recently did, like, during Halloween, I was like, let me make a list of all these horror movies that I want to watch, and I want to include some of my favorites. And, like, horror has such an expansive subgenre of it, like slasher, your thriller, alien, creature feature. You could go at, like, there really are so many different horror, like, psychological horror. There's that, like, paranormal element. And I think that there's probably a standout in all of the subgenres as my favorite, but that doesn't mean I prefer, I do prefer some subgenres over others, but there are some that I like, and I just like them in a lot of ways.
Well, and, like, what I will say is, like, some of the ones that I've written about the most have been Raw, which is a French horror movie. I love I think cannibal stories are really interesting, and it's kind of got that element, so I find that really interesting. And then Ginger Snaps.
Ginger Snaps.
Which is so good and just so, like, of a time and, like, of, like, an ironic, tongue-in-cheek, like, period story, basically, with also werewolves. And I like to do one that was weird. So I like to do one that was, like, I could, like, be like, oh, that's weird, and I like watching it.
Yeah.
So I think those are probably two of my...
Those are good ones. I haven't seen either of those. I do. Really I have seen... In college, when I studied French, we were watching a lot of movies, and my professor loved horror, so we watched a lot of horror movies. And the French know how to do some fucking horror movies.
They do, yeah.
It's crazy. If you like Emilia Perez and The Substance, then you should go down a rabbit hole of French horror movies from probably the early, I think the 2000 to 2010 was another
good
era.
Prime time for sure, especially in French cinema. I mean, the French are really good at just kind of going. They like the over the topness, but they don't want to admit it.
Exactly. No, they're
they're a little sneaky about it.
They're a little sneaky about it. Okay, my favorite memory, which is this is kind of like my favorite movie, also, but it's one of my favorite movies. But I think I enjoyed this memory about horror movies, specifically because it was a family affair for some reason. This is the year 2006.
I'm there.
You're 6 years old. I'm 9 years old. I'm barely I'm not even preteen at this point. I literally am not even double digits. But we went to Blockbuster and we got this. I think at that point, I was able to. My dad allowed us to pick the movie that we would watch, and one of the kids grabbed this movie off the shelf and we watched it. And the movie was called The Host, and it is literally one of the craziest movies I've ever seen. Yeah. It's Bong Joon-ho, Parasite director.
And I probably saw it around that same time.
Yes, it was and it was 2006. He didn't have another. I mean, he had other commercial successes in Korea, but his first international success from that was 2019's Parasite, or 18. I can't remember when that came out, but. The Host was fucking wild. Yeah. That movie is so good. We watched it as a family and we all really liked it.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was one of those this is scary. Wow. It's a creature feature. Yeah. And we recently rewatched that movie, me and my sister, and they've since updated the CGI on the beast itself.
That's really interesting.
But that movie scared the shit out of me as a kid because I think I was the same age as the girl that I was 9 when I watched it, and the little girl in that movie is 9 when she gets snatched, literally snatched by a beast running down the banks of the Han River in Korea, which is the whole first 30 minutes of that movie is legitimately terrifying because it captures the panic of a natural disaster almost, but also the despair and dad's losing someone immediately. And in that moment in that movie, the dad's very well established as a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's literally is a bumbling drunk and fool.
Oh my god, I want to watch this so bad.
It's so good. Yeah. It's so good. And everyone blames him, and I think it's an interesting cultural perspective as well. That movie being fully, it's written. It takes place in Korea, and all the language we watched it was Korean with subtitles. We watched a subtitled movie in 2006. We were a progressive ass family, which is funny because he has that quote of if Americans could get over 2 inches of text, what your world would open up.
Yeah.
And all those things. It's so true. Oh my god.
True. Yeah.
But that movie, I think in a lot of ways the way that the characters end up playing out is the sister is a high achieving archer, and so she has this physical prowess, and every person in the family takes on a responsibility in rescuing this girl. Spoiler alert, obviously, but it's just a really really good movie.
It is, yeah.
And it definitely is one of those there's horror involved because of the monster, but it isn't. it's an interesting spin on horror.
Well, that's why I think he's really good at doing that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, Parasite was good at, like, it being this thriller horror kind of thing, while obviously being, like, a social commentary,
Yeah.
and then, like, having all of these kind of layers, like, that's what it really, like, kind of succeeded at.
Yeah, for a while, I didn't really understand why people were labeling Parasite as a horror movie.
Right.
Except, I mean, I did watch it, and I kind of was having that thought afterwards, but I was like, I put myself back in the seat where I was watching. I was like, the amount of tension that is going on in that movie.
Yeah.
It isn't about being scared by anything scary. It's that you have invested in these people, and your feelings are at stake if they're at stake.
Absolutely.
Like, you're just fully in that empathetic like mindset, I think, as a viewer, if you're really watching and paying attention, and the movie is doing something effective to you. I like really was like, okay, that gets it. Because if they were to have gotten found out, and they did, I was like fucking scared. I was like, oh no, what's gonna happen to them? I love them.
Yeah, speaking of memories, and that is one of my favorite solo horror memories, is watching Parasite on my birthday, which is like a tradition that I give myself.
Yes.
Is to watch a horror movie alone, just like take myself to the theater.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love doing it, and Parasite was one of those, and I had a wonderful time.
You had a wonderful 2.5 hours in the theater.
Tense. It was wonderful and also so tense.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, I love that you brought up like watching horror movies by yourself. Do you think you watch the majority of scary movies like with someone?
I don't know, because Jerica doesn't like scary movies.
I was going to say, I think it's the same way. I've always been the one person that likes scary movies until like probably, and that like growing up in high school and stuff, when I lived without my sister, I was watching scary movies on my laptop in my room.
Yeah.
And like at that point, I had gone through like all of the Friday the 13th. I watched Alien. I went like through this like classic horror phase because I was like, I was really scared of these things as a kid. Like, I need to figure out if I'm still scared of these and why.
Yeah,
and
it's
like,
a good challenge.
It was. And slasher as a genre was one that I like knew I liked because I liked the gore that was like in like fighting games and Mortal Kombat. But like some slasher movies like really take it there.
Yeah. Well, and you know, like this is kind of opening up all of the worms in my brain. But I did watch them with like, you know, Sydney and Tessa. We would watch them together. I remember one time I watched the Human Centipede with Sydney Outlaw, and we were so uncomfortable, and like I just remember us turning to each other and saying, "This isn't fun."
Yeah, we can turn this off.
Yeah, this isn't fun. We're just not enjoying ourselves right now.
And that's so funny because I think that's a movie that people cite as like a, you know, this is why horror is bad. And it's like, I hate when people love to conflate one thing as representative of everything.
I agree. Because I love horror and I don't like the Human Centipede.
Exactly. I have a refined taste and I don't like the Human Centipede.
I just don't want to see someone get sewn to a butthole.
It just
That's
doesn't.
like my personal preference.
It doesn't do anything for me.
No,
I don't know. I remember that movie, and it was like literally a cultural phenomenon when it came out because like
I thought it was gonna be like funny bad, and then it just like wasn't even funny.
I think it falls into the trap of like sight gags over story, a compelling story, and there are so many scary movies out there, horror movies out there that like love to boo scare you, but I only get like boo scared or like actually terrified these days if it is like unsettling in a psychological way. There's some form of reality to the situation, and that reality can be a lot of different things. I think about like Mike Flanagan and Hush and The Haunting of Hill House.
Hush was it brought my tensions high.
Oh my gosh. Like I think that there's something crazy out there. Like someone watched that movie for the first time with like a heartbeat monitor on them, and like then it showed like the echocardiogram of like their heart rate during the movie, and it like is so freaking tense because like I mean there's so many things going on. The woman like is fucking deaf, she can't hear, but yet she is the hero in this story and is constantly like it's just so good. There's so many good ones out there. Okay, we're going into our memory dumps. If you go into, you know that like memory is stored in your hippocampus and everything. If you take a left, things go left. You fall down into the memory dumps. Yeah. We're going to talk about our least favorite memories related to horror movies.
Okay. Definitely. I mean, Human Centipede, I feel like, is up there.
Yeah.
For me. Some of my least favorite memories. Honestly, I think a lot of it happens when I feel like I'm watching a horror movie and one of my least favorite memories surrounding a horror movie that I love is on my 12th birthday. I had invited all of my friends over to watch The Shining. Yes. And it was my 12th birthday, fresh in middle school. I was a little weirdo. Yeah. And my mom made me a zombie graveyard cake. Oh. And my birthday's in October.
Yep.
I mean, and so we're close to Halloween. So I always had a Halloween-themed birthday or like a costume party or something. And this one I wanted it to be about horror movies. Yeah. So I invited everyone over to watch The Shining. And one of my friends was so vocal about thinking it was boring, thinking it was like just not fun to watch, and like I understand how to a 12-year-old with like a short attention span.
I know.
The Shining
having
can be
watched
boring.
it recently, it's a tougher watch, but it has an immense payoff.
Yes,
I think.
Yes, and I remember being like so like. That being one of the first moments where I was like, oh, the things that I like are not the things that other people like, and it could alienate me from other people. So that was like kind of my most common
not at a birthday party, not at your birthday party.
At my birthday party. So we turned it off because I was like, I didn't want everyone to be bored on my birthday.
Well, you're really considerate, and I'm sorry to Little Port for that, because that sucks.
And I've seen The Shining plenty of times since then. It's like, I don't need a...
You've redeemed The Shining.
Yeah. But otherwise, I feel like I just never enjoy a horror movie where I feel like the expense is at, the audience or something, where it's either too overt, too shocking, kind of like The Human Centipede, or if it's just like, how can we make atrocity after atrocity happen? Yep. Like some people get really into like extreme horror and whatever, and I'm just like not super into that because I'm like, at the end of the day, I want to watch a good story.
Exactly. I was like, I watch movies that is like all movies for a good story. Yeah. And that is like genre like exclusive. It doesn't matter what genre it is. I want to see a good story being told.
I agree.
And I typically do like horror movies because I feel like in a lot of ways the story can be told through like the very real reality that violence exists.
Yeah.
And yes, extreme violence exists. And in a lot of ways, like the only time I will ever witness someone get their motherfucking head chopped off is if I'm watching a scary movie. Yeah. And that is a privilege.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. And like,
I'm so glad I don't ever have to see that in real life.
Exactly.
But I get it out from that. I get that like my body reacts to that, to seeing that trauma that is happening to another body. I know it's like being depicted and everything, and it's not real. Movie magic is making it appear as if it's real, but like depending on the story, like there's some, I don't know, there's just some moments where like someone getting brutalized like that is like really, really impactful.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely like there's a fine. I mean, that's why horror is so hard to make, where it's like there's this fine line between the catharsis, like the cathartic experience of watching something play out and understanding like what is happening, which is kind of why we watch horror, is to see like these intense or extreme moments play out, and then look at the story that's happening, and it also releases some kind of thing for us to be like, that's not happening to me. Like I can breathe. Yeah. And then there's the other side of that, which is just like act after act after act of like violence that doesn't do anything for the story or is just like there to be shocking. And it feels like a very like post 2000s kind of thing in horror that like some people are just like, put it in.
Yeah, when the genre I think got oversaturated and like less artful, because what would happen is that people would show up for a shitty movie. Yeah. People would go to the movies for like any trash.
Yeah.
And specifically, I think horror was able to be marketed to create those moments, those box office hits. Like, I don't know. The first Paranormal Activity comes to mind. Not that that movie's bad or anything, but like, you know, they were in their marketing of the movie. They had like hidden cameras in the theaters and were showing like grayscale of like people reacting to these moments in the movie that are probably like, you know, like genuinely terrifying in some ways. I have seen the movie and like the bookshelf moves. Like
it's like the tension building and like you know, they got reactionary audiences.
Absolutely.
And they played it up really well, and they like did that as a part of their marketing, and that got butts in the seats.
Exactly. But like in terms of the story of like that franchise in particular, at some point it goes really off the rails and they try and make it like a trilogy, a lore thing where like every movie is connected to each other. But the best one of that series is I think either the second or the third one, I can't remember, but they do a really good job of like there being something to be afraid of and building tension along at the same time. I think it's the second one. And you know what? It has a fucking basement scene. And anytime, you know, which is a Blair Witch, like, I think, not callback, reference, if you will, but like, there being like a part of this, of the setting that has yet to be explored for unknown reasons until you're just there at the very end and it's really fucking scary. Those ones like do get me. But Paranormal Activity is not my favorite franchise. I have a lot of other ones that are
I don't return to it.
No. And like Paranormal, I think about like that genre expands to be like some of the like Insidious movies and Annabelle. Not some of my favorites.
When The Conjuring came out, I was like, oh, this is interesting.
I was seated for The Conjuring.
I was definitely seated for The Conjuring, but then they just kept going, and I did watch The Nun or whatever.
Yes,
with
The
my friends.
Nun is scary.
The Nun, that was a fun little romp.
Yes.
That was a romp when I watched it in theaters. I was also, I was high, so I was like, this is hilarious and fun, and I like, that is an example of a scary movie that I feel like is like, not amazing, but it's a fun watch.
I was gonna say, I think that the genre within the time frame we're talking about, which is probably like 2000 to like 2014, did become able to have movies that exist in this like weird overlap where like audiences knew what they were getting into with like jump scares and like maybe the story's not that good or whatever, but like it was still entertaining. There was something that was bringing people along for the ride. But like your first example, Human Centipede, not that. Shock value only. No, there's no purpose to a man or some ugly ass doctor out there sewing people's together. Ridiculous. Okay, I love it. I'm gonna share mine with you.
Share yours.
I have two. And they are the first one is like a really like deep-seated childhood memory of mine. When I was, I think, like 4 or 5, we watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So 1997 and 2000. I want to see like which. I know exactly which one it was. It wasn't the
original.
It was not the original. There was one remake in the early. I love the original. Oh my gosh, the original like to this day is one of my favorite movies. But there's one in like the 2000s. I'm looking this up only because I want to cite the date correctly. I'm like 2002, I want to say. 2003. The 2003 remake, which was like, I think a reboot of the franchise because they tried to do like a couple ones after that.
They did try to do a few.
Yeah, but we watched, oh my God, Jessica Biel's in this one. Crazy. But yeah, it's a full reboot where like the names of the characters are like the names of the original characters from the 70s. But my babysitter, who was like, we were living out in Tahlequah at the time, and my dad had like land across the street where we like raised our cows and stuff. But like there was something about like being shown a movie without any, there was no
like pretense.
There was no primer for a 4-year-old, 5-year-old that like, one, this isn't real. And two, like you are living in a place that is setting wise really close.
Totally.
Like you're in country. Tahlequah like is kind of a city, but where we were,
you have some land, yeah, around you.
And baby, Oklahoma and Texas are really close.
They're really close, yeah.
He could come up here.
Yeah, he could just drive.
He could just get in this little car, that truck or whatever they drive. The whole family, which now I know the whole lore. There's like a whole damn family.
A whole lore.
But basically, like that, watching that movie triggered a series of repetitive nightmares that I had for probably like 6 years.
Oh my goodness.
Like, I'm not even joking. It was like really, really, it got me good.
Yeah.
And I remember like nights waking up, like, I don't know if I would wake up in tears or whatever, but I would wake up scared. I think this is like fully when I conceptualize like what fear was, and it was the fear of what happened in this movie happening to me. And I, you know, as an adult, I'm now like, I should have never watched that movie. Why did someone show me that movie? Because it really like, it got me like really bad. And a lot of the nightmare, because I had it so many times, I like remember a lot of details about it. It is like, it involves all the slashers. So Leatherface, Jason, and Freddy all make an appearance in this reoccurring nightmare that I had as a child. And I hadn't even watched the other movies, but because of
Jason
Leatherface.
versus Freddy.
Yeah. You faggot. Kelly Rowland calling Freddy a faggot is the craziest thing. The craziest thing. Yep. But all three of them were there, and essentially, like, it was a the setting in my brain was like the house on the side of a hill, and I'm running up the hill, like, to try and get away from someone, and he gets me.
Oh my God, he gets you.
And I feel like I would always wake up at the same point in that nightmare of, like, getting got, and, like, it was just really scary. Yeah. And I think, like, that movie and that franchise is something I've returned to as an adult, and I think I've gotten over like the actual fear of it.
But it's scary. I mean,
it is scary.
That is like Jerica's threshold is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, that was too scary for them.
Gory. You go to any haunted attraction and you hear a chainsaw, it is like
think about it.
Immediately that trigger for me. And like, I mean, Texas and Oklahoma being so close, like, has genuinely like always made me terrified of that. And so and I think that movie also like really is gory. It
is.
I think like he chops people in half.
He's got a chainsaw.
Yeah, he's not afraid.
Chainsaw Massacre.
And like he freaking throws people up on hooks.
Oh my God, yeah.
There's just some really brutal scenes in that, and like it just got me. It got me
for a little baby. That's too much.
Little baby Evan couldn't handle it, and I don't think my brother ever made fun of me for it or like ever like really teased that out in me. Thank God. Thank you, Ethan. But like there were just moments where I just always remember waking up and like that was the reoccurring nightmare.
The country is also scary.
The country is scary, and most horror films, not most, but some horror films.
There's a good subgenre of that. Yeah.
Absolutely, a cabin in the woods, if you will.
Woods, yeah.
Okay, so the second part of this is, I think, like, the continuation of this, like, things that actually scared me, and that, like, the reason it's my least favorite is because, like, this franchise is one that I'm really, really hot and cold about.
Yeah.
Final Destination.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I'm there with you.
Tough. It is tough. Really, really tough. The first one that I watched was, I think it's after the original trilogy, so there's... The first one, they survive a plane crash. Right. The second one, they survive the highway incident. The third one is the roller coaster.
Oh my God, the roller coaster one is like...
I think that's the one that like I've gone back to watch, and like I actually really like that one because I think the deaths are really like intricate and fun. And the second one, the first one and the fourth one. So the fourth one was kind of, it got this like mid 2000s like facelift. Yeah. Bitch, that shit was scary. Oh my gosh. And I think the like tragedy in that one that they all avoid is like a race car. They go to the racetrack and like it is, oh my gosh, there's like some of the most insane like what do they call Rube Goldberg machine
Right.
ass
Yes.
death.
Yes. Absolutely. Oh my God. Like, there's one with a forklift,
Yeah.
I think, and then, yeah. I mean, that one also like that gets you because I'm the type of person. My particular brain will think about all the ways that I could potentially die at any given scenario, and maybe it is because I watched Final Destination at a young age.
I think it psychologically messed with me.
Yeah.
And in that movie specifically, the way that like the thing that happened at the race, the original tragedy, like that they avoid because like death saved them, but now is going to come back and get them. You know, it's an interesting plot line because I don't know, it allows for there really to be no villain.
Yeah.
But like
Just
high
fate.
body count,
Yeah.
which is I think kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because there's like you can't reason with fate or
Yeah.
whatever. And there's like 2 or 3 deaths in that movie that are like so scary. One is this woman is like taking her kids to like she's going to get her hair done, and I guess the kids like are they're just 2 little boys throwing rocks or whatever, and they throw like these rocks out on the grass, and the grass is getting landscaped, and so after she gets her hair done, there's all these like this tension building that like the hairdryer is going to come unplugged and shock her, or like the ceiling is swaying and it's the lamp's going to fall on her. No, she walks out of the salon, and the guy that's landscaping with the lawnmower shoots one of the rocks that her son threw into her eye.
Oh my God.
It is like, it fucked with me up. That one scared the shit out of me. And then the second death in that one that also got me like in like a really interesting way is that I guess like when you watch it now, you realize like the reason that they get themselves in these scenarios are like really stupid. Like they're the 2 hot guys are like play fighting in the pool, and they throw the hot girl in the pool, and she drops her ring, so she goes down to the bottom of the pool to get her rings. Then he swims down to the bottom of the pool. The somehow fate messes with the pump of the pool, and he sucks the guy like from the bottom of the pool, like he's literally drowning, and then gets sucked all the way out of the pool pump.
What?
It's crazy. It's never gonna happen.
But it was
scared
there.
the shit out of me.
It was there.
And
yeah,
it's the reason it's like so vivid and so my least favorite is because like I know that it is it has something to do with the way that I am now in a bad way. It created my anxieties about some things.
Yeah.
And
I'm terrified of planes.
Oh my God.
Terrified of planes. I don't like them. Probably because of Final Destination.
Yeah.
Never will get in a tanning bed. Think about it every time there's a log in front of me when I'm on the.
Oh my God!
Get
Get me! I'm changing lanes.
Yeah, I am not driving behind that. It is like
even elevators scare me. There's that one hook hand, the man with the hook hands.
Hook hand door.
It's just crazy. That movie, like, I think that they set up these scenarios, and they've gotten, like, worse and worse. There's one where, like, the girl is getting, like, LASIK eye surgery, and I'm like, oh, my God.
I will never get LASIK. I wouldn't. Contacts or glasses till the day I die.
Till the day I die. I will always look these good in these frames.
Yes. They look really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is, like, the movie and that genre, I think, like, just continue to try and one-up itself to... Now I'm getting critical of the thing that I just said scared the shit out of me.
Well, you know.
But I don't know. There's something about like those movies became in my adult rewatches of them to try and almost like debunk some of the scariness. They're not enjoyable.
Yeah.
There's not really a payoff. Like I don't know.
Everyone just dies.
Everyone just dies.
Well, except the first one I thought, was at least novel.
Yes. It was groundbreaking. Ali Larder is the one that survives, and I live for her.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know. I think they did a little bit of a better job in the first one, as many film franchises
but then it just kind of becomes and like eats itself. And
yeah, because like you're trying to find the logic of like the logic in the movie, and so that it can actually scare you.
Yeah.
But it breaks down more and more the more times they try and reiterate on this. And so I don't know. Those are my least favorite memories relating to movies. I think because they really messed with me.
Absolutely, those are hard.
Yeah, and I don't know other movies like that have like really gory or horrific deaths like do sit with me and impact me. Speaking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2022 remake that they put on Netflix has some of the most insane deaths. Like, it's wild. There's like this one scene where they're like in a bus and Leatherface walks onto the bus and no one walks out of that bus. Like he's like over his body count's like over 25 in that movie. Yeah. Also, he does a drive-by, which is crazy.
Drive-by chainsaw.
Yes, it's at the very, very end, and so it's like one of those like, "Hi, you thought you were gonna get out of here, bitch."
Yeah.
No, Leatherface has your name and your number.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's horror movies are a lot.
Yeah, well, and then like that made me think of we were talking about like the country, and like that's where my grandma's house was, in rural Oklahoma in southeastern part of the state. And it is country. It is like she lives outside of a small town country, and all my family lived in like rural Oklahoma or in small towns like in that area until my parents and I moved up here to Tulsa. Yeah. So like I remember my aunt's this one memory of like I had not seen Friday the 13th yet. I did not know who Jason was. They were telling me to like look out the window because Jason was gonna come and get me.
Oh no.
And I was like, "Who's that?
Who's that?"
And they said he wears a hockey mask and carries a chainsaw. And I was like,
a machete.
A machete,
yes.
Yeah. And I was like, is he our cousin?
Is that our cousin?
Is that our cousin? Is our cousin coming by? He's got a hockey mask?
Coming back.
Does he play hockey?
So, is that a hockey mask? Like, come on.
Yeah.
That
was a funny memory of the country trying to be scary, and then me just like being really young and like being like, oh.
And not dealing with any of it. Yeah. Our cousin Jason. Or our cousin Freddie.
Yeah.
There are lots of things that like as a kid I think like scared me now but don't scare me anymore. The little like Freddie song, 1, 2, Freddie's coming for you. Anytime there are kids doing creepy shit, it like used to scare me. Now I'm like, I think that creepy kids don't creep me out anymore because I want children and I don't want to. I don't know. Like most of the time, the justification of there being a creepy kid in the first place is because that kid has gone through some
trauma,
shit.
Like literally. Yeah, I think like.
And I can empathize with that child.
Yeah, and I'm also like, I was weird too.
Exactly. So, I might have smelled a little bit.
No, that does not. Yeah, creepy kid stuff doesn't really freak me out. Dolls don't really freak me out. That kind of stuff, I don't know. It just doesn't get me. I think it's more whimsical to me than it is scary. I'm like, ooh, look at you. Yeah. You've got a little song.
So what is, I know I kind of mentioned movies that were, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre wasn't my least favorite movie.
Right.
But like, I do think that the Final Destination series is one of my least favorite horror franchises. Hot take. I also don't like Terrifier. Have you seen them?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Which I know is crazy for me personally, but I haven't seen them.
I can't recommend it.
Okay.
Like, and I don't know. There's this cultural phenomenon around the movie that's kind of like modern day. Like he is like fully like Art the Clown is now like a horror icon, and I don't like it.
I don't like him.
I don't like it. This past Halloween, I saw someone driving in their car with a full Art the Clown like look on. Yeah. And like if you've seen the things that he's done in those movies, it is like you do not ever want to see that man. Yeah. And I think that that's the whole point of like Damien Leone like wanting to do this, and like I get that it's unsettling, and that is like that's the impact that's having on the viewer. I'm not into it.
Well, that's how I feel about Saw.
Okay, Saw.
I'm not a huge Saw franchise person.
Saw has a moral complex.
And I don't think I like that.
I don't think that there's it's trying to force you to believe that no one is redeemable.
Yes.
And then the characters do irredeemable shit. And you're like, okay, you motherfuckers deserve to die. You wouldn't give your wife that like life-saving I don't know. There's some crazy scenarios.
There are some really wild scenarios. One of them I think is just being gay also, which I'm like, okay, lock me up. saw off my leg.
There you go, Jigsaw.
But yeah, I don't know. It just never appealed to me. I think the thing is with like franchises and stuff, I don't typically like them as much, just because, I mean, like, anyone doesn't like a franchise or sequels or whatever. I think they do just become parody of themselves until you get to a tipping point in which the parody is really fun to watch. And that's how I feel about Freddy versus Jason.
Absolutely. And I think that they, which is so interesting because it's like literally two like classic horror slasher franchises. The first, I would say the first 3 Friday the 13th are really scary and like did terrify me.
Yeah.
The first 2 Nightmare on Elm Streets, I think are actually written to be scary. Yeah. Then they become kind of crazy because like Freddy is literally a caricature at some point. He just like sometimes kills people. Yeah. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Like those 2 like had, you know, gone off the deep end, if you will, but then them meeting in this like clash of the horror titans was hilarious.
Amazing. Like I think that you have to, like, at some point, if your horror movie isn't doing what it's supposed to do, you have to lean into the fact that it's bad and funny, and that is also like a sweet spot that I love.
Yeah, but then it changes genres from horror because there has to
comedy.
Exactly, horror comedy, which is
a whole nother topic.
Becoming more and more things. Next time you're on, we'll talk about horror comedies. Portland, we have one final segment to talk about today, and I really just want to kind of like zoom out from movies and like what, in relation to memories though, if you look at, you know, your life or just like things in general about your life, like what do you wish you could remember more of?
I desperately wish that I could remember more about people and about people that I've met. I have terrible like blindness when it comes to like putting names and faces together. And I would love more memories surrounding just like everyone who I meet, because I feel like when I was thinking about coming onto this podcast, I was like, wow, I also can't remember shit. This is going to be so much fun. But I do think
I love
like,
my brilliance.
I love you have great brilliance. I want to remember more about people. And it just like, you know, as you get older, I feel like that is always the thing that you're thinking about is like, oh wow, people are leaving, people are passing, you know, like I move, people move, and then you always just want to hold on to those memories. And I do feel like I'm slowly getting better at that. I'm trying to journal more.
Yes, that's like, a great way to do it.
Yeah. So I really want to focus more on that and remembering people who I like. I recently ran into someone who I went to elementary school with, and she remembered that I brought a bird, like a toy bird, to class, and everyone got a chance to like hold it. It was a toy bird that my dad's art teacher gave me, and you would like balance it on your beak. So like the bird would be sitting here, and then you would balance it on your finger by its beak, and so it was like this cool optical illusion of like, oh, I'm balancing a bird by its beak.
But like there was like weighted on the beak.
And it was weighted on the beak.
That's awesome.
And she remembered that, and she was like, we went to elementary school together. You know, first she asked me, was your dad the magician or did you bring a bird to school? And I was like, I brought the bird to school.
He would have wanted you to say magician.
I know, magician is so cool. But I was like, wow, that's so special that like you remembered me, and also that you remember
from all these years,
and like we had like we didn't like. I was like so impressed by that memory, and also the fact that she remembered that specific thing, because that specific toy was so impactful for me because it was like my dad's art teacher in high school, so he gave it to me when I went over there, and it was just like a fun, you know, little wholesome moment.
Well, and like you had that moment with that thing, and that thing had its moment with multiple people, you know, intergenerationally, and then also on this like random girl from elementary school, which is crazy.
Yeah,
I think that's really. I think you hit a lot of good points there, especially about like the getting older and wanting to remember like details more, because like the details are important when it comes to like honestly, like sitting on a podcast and talking about movies, like I start to think about, I don't know when movies come out. I love knowing what actors are in what movies, and like that recall of memory is like something I don't know, maybe sometimes think a little bit highly of myself for doing. It's like
it's really impressive. I get impressed by it.
I try, and it's it's like an encyclopedic knowledge. I have friends that are way, way, way better at it.
Dirk is really good at it.
My friend Nick is like literally can tell you, if I gave you a year, he could tell you the best picture winner at the Oscars
really
that year.
Nice. Dirk is really good
wild.
at actors, the acting thing, which I'm like, I don't know that person. I do not recognize that
I've
person.
seen someone in like one or two things, by the second one, I like have already done the IMDb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, they were also in like that thing too.
I am absolutely on IMDb all the time.
Yes, a pro member.
Yeah, I wish.
But no, I think it's really sweet, and like just a good exercise that we should. The intentionality of memory is really at the basis of like this podcast, and so whatever way you can do that, I love that journaling is something that you've kind of already come to. I think that journaling is a great way to do it. I'm not a practitioner yet, but we're gonna get
Hopeful
there.
practitioner.
Exactly. I'm an encourager of journaling.
Yeah.
My thing right now, I would say, and this is a new development for me, but I want to read more, and reading helps me remember things more, because the act of reading is like something that I think we are losing as a culture, the ability to focus on one particular task and only that. Like, I know some people can listen to music while they read. I know some people can listen to podcasts while they read. They can do other things. They can walk on the treadmill and read. But like, I want to protect like my focus time when I read, where like I'm only reading. Like I need to do that.
Yeah.
And so I'm hopeful that will seep into some other things.
You're going to be so Proust, reading about memory, Madeleines.
Oh my gosh. Well, right now I'm reading The Ethical Slut. So.
Oh, lovely. I have another rec for you,
yes.
book-wise, because I just read it, and it got me thinking about this specific thing, because it is semi-memoir-ish. It is Larry McMurtry's Walter Benjamin at the Dairy Queen, and it is a series of essays that he talks about, like, all of the, prolific, novelist. And he talks about everything that he's read. He talks about his growing up in, a very small town in, I think it's the Panhandle of Texas. Maybe it's West Texas.
Yeah.
But his ability to conjure these memories and to write about them in a lovely way from, I think he's like 66.
Wow.
Is wonderful. And it made me think of memory as like a tool, and also like wanting to encourage my memory. So I recommend reading that.
I love that. I absolutely will.
To anyone else too.
And to anyone else that's listening. Well, Portlyn, we did it.
Yay!
We remembered shit.
We remembered shit.
Thank you so much for being on this episode with me. I hope it was a fun little jaunt into our memory banks.
It was. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, anything, I always will offer you the platform that you would like. You don't have to have one. If you don't want anyone to follow you anywhere, just that can be that.
I did delete all of my social media recently, except for my Pinterest. So you can follow me on Pinterest at Portlyn HH. That's like literally all I have.
I love that for you.
Oh, and Substack, but that's not up yet.
We're working on it.
Yeah, we're working.
In 2025, period.
2025. Journaling.
I love it. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this episode of I Can't Remember Shit, and thank you so much, Portlyn, for being here.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.